The sun was just beginning to rise over the city, painting the tall buildings with a warm golden light. The streets were quiet, except for the occasional car or bus that passed by. Among the early risers was a man who stood out in every sense of the word. He was known in the city not only for his wealth, but for the empire he had built with determination and sharp intelligence. His name was a symbol of success, power, and influence. Every morning, he followed the same routine: a quick drive through the city to ensure his businesses were running smoothly, a cup of strong coffee from his favorite cafe, and then hours of meetings and calls that kept him at the top of his world. On this particular morning, as he drove through a less busy part of the city, he noticed something unusual. A small figure sat near the roadside, hands outstretched, eyes following each passerby with a mix of hope and weariness. It was a child, no older than 7 or 8, wearing tattered clothes and looking as if the world had already been harsh to them. The child's face was smudged with dirt, and there was a quiet desperation in their eyes that made it impossible to ignore. He had seen many things in his life: success, betrayal, struggle, but this sight struck him differently. For a moment, he slowed the car, not out of pity, but out of curiosity and a strange sense of concern. There was something in the child's eyes, something familiar that he couldn't quite place. He parked a short distance away and watched silently, observing the way the child shifted, trying to catch the attention of people walking by. Most people passed without a glance, wrapped in their own lives, oblivious to the small human being asking for help. The billionaire felt a knot in his chest. He had never been someone to display emotions openly, especially not in public, but this scene touched something deep inside him. He remembered moments from his own childhood, times when life had tested him, times when a kind gesture from someone else had changed everything. Though his journey had been different, the raw vulnerability of this child reminded him of the fragility of life and the power of small acts of kindness. For several minutes, he simply watched. He noticed how the child's small hands trembled as they held out a cup, how the eyes flickered with disappointment every time someone ignored them. The streets around them were slowly coming to life, people hurrying to work, buses pulling up, and cars weaving through traffic. Yet, despite the crowd, the child seemed invisible. And that invisibility made the billionaire feel a mix of anger and sadness. How could anyone ignore a child in need? How could the world move on without noticing the pain so clearly in front of it? Driven by an instinct he did not fully understand, he stepped out of his car and walked toward the child. The movement startled the little one, who instinctively recoiled, thinking the man might scold or chase them away. But the billionaire stopped a few feet away, crouched down slightly, and spoke in a gentle tone, careful not to frighten the child further. His voice was calm, steady, carrying an unusual warmth that caught the child off guard. "Hey there," he said softly. "Are you okay?" The child's eyes widened. No one had spoken to them like that in a long time. Most people either ignored them or muttered something unpleasant if they looked in their direction. The child hesitated, unsure whether to respond. Finally, after a few seconds, a small voice answered, barely audible over the morning sounds. "I'm fine," the child said, though the tone betrayed fear and uncertainty. "Just waiting." "Waiting for what?" the billionaire asked, genuinely curious. The child shrugged, a movement that made the already loose sleeves of their shirt flap. "I don't know. Maybe someone will help," they whispered, almost as if saying it aloud made it more real. The billionaire's heart ached. He felt a surge of protectiveness and a deep desire to understand this child's story. Something about the way the child spoke, resilience in their small body, despite the obvious hardships, compelled him to stay and learn more. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small sandwich he had bought for himself. He offered it to the child. "Here," he said, holding it out. "You look like you could use this." The child looked at the sandwich as if it were a treasure. Hesitation lingered, but hunger won. The small hands reached out and took it carefully, almost as if afraid it would disappear if handled too quickly. They tore off a piece and ate it slowly, savoring every bite. The billionaire watched quietly, letting the child eat in peace. There was a silence, comfortable yet filled with unspoken understanding. As the child finished the sandwich, the billionaire realized he needed to know more. He could not just leave the child there. He asked gently, "Where do you live? Do you have someone taking care of you?" The child looked down, eyes fixed on the ground. I live around here," they said softly. "Sometimes with an aunt, sometimes I just sleep wherever I can, people. They don't really notice me." It was a simple statement, but it carried a weight that was almost unbearable. The billionaire felt a mixture of sorrow and anger at the harshness of life. He knew he had the means to make a difference, but he also knew he had to approach carefully. Sudden gestures could scare the child, and trust needed to be earned. "Would you like to come with me for a while?" he asked. "I can take you somewhere safe. No one will hurt you." The child's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of disbelief. No one had ever offered such kindness unconditionally. They shook their head, unsure, because trust had not been a part of their life for a long time. The billionaire did not press. He simply sat beside the child and waited, letting them understand that he was not going anywhere. Minutes passed like hours. Slowly, the child's defenses began to lower. Curiosity and a faint glimmer of hope started to replace the fear. They asked in a tiny voice, Who are you?" "I'm someone who wants to help," the billionaire said. "That's all you need to know for now." There was a pause, and then a small, almost imperceptible nod. The child looked around one last time, as if seeking reassurance from the busy street, and then slowly got up. The billionaire extended his hand, and this time the child took it. It was a small gesture, but it marked the beginning of trust. Fragile yet promising, as they walked toward the car. The billionaire kept the conversation light, talking about ordinary things, how the city looked in the morning, the sounds of birds, the smells of the fresh bakery nearby. The child began to relax, giggling softly at a stray dog that trotted past. The tension in their small body eased slightly with each step, and the billionaire felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could make a difference. When they reached his car, he opened the door for the child. They hesitated for a moment, looking back at the street that had been their home, chaotic and unforgiving. The billionaire noticed the hesitation and knelt beside the car. "It's okay," he said. "You're safe with me. No one will hurt you." The child nodded again, this time more firmly, and stepped inside. The billionaire closed the door gently and started the engine. As the car moved through the waking city, he glanced at the child sitting quietly, looking out the window. A strange feeling settled in his chest, something he could not ignore. He realized that this moment, this encounter, had already begun to change him. He thought about his life, his empire, his achievements, and suddenly they seemed smaller, less important. He had built a world of wealth and influence, yet it was moments like this, raw and real, that touched the soul. The child's presence made him reflect on choices, on compassion, on the power of human connection that money alone could never buy. As they drove further, the billionaire decided that he needed to take immediate steps to ensure the child's safety. He knew he could not simply drop them off somewhere or leave them to navigate the world alone. He thought about temporary arrangements, people he trusted, and ways to slowly introduce the child to a safer environment. He wanted the transition to be gentle, respectful, and empowering, not just a display of wealth solving problems instantly. The child, meanwhile, began to talk softly about small things, the smell of bread from the bakery, the colors of the sunrise, the sound of cars and bicycles passing by. Their voice gained strength, the tone becoming lighter, and with each word, the billionaire felt a sense of responsibility growing stronger. He could not let this child go back to the hardships of the street. He could not allow the hope in those eyes to fade again. The drive continued, each moment layering trust and understanding. The billionaire realized that this was not just about helping a child. It was about connecting with the human side of life he had often neglected in pursuit of success. This encounter was teaching him something invaluable: empathy, patience, and the profound impact of kindness. By the time they reached a quiet, safe place he had prepared, the bond between them had formed enough that the child felt a tentative sense of security. The billionaire guided them inside, offering water and a warm place to sit. The child's eyes, once filled with fear, now reflected curiosity and cautious optimism. That morning, what began as a routine drive had turned into a turning point. For the billionaire, it was a realization that life's true wealth was measured not in money or power, but in the lives one touched and the love one shared. For the child, it was the first glimpse of hope, a small but powerful light in a life that had known too much darkness. And so, the day began differently for both of them. One had the world at his feet, yet had just discovered a new purpose. The other had little in the way of material possessions, but had found the first sign of someone who truly cared. Neither would ever forget that morning, the day a billionaire saw his child begging on the road. And the moment that began to change both their lives forever. The billionaire watched quietly as the child settled into the safe space he had prepared. The room was simple, warm, and clean, designed to make anyone feel secure. Yet the child's small figure remained tense, eyes wide, scanning the room as if expecting trouble at any moment. The billionaire understood that trust had to be earned slowly, and he did not push the child to talk about anything they were not ready to share. He simply offered small gestures, water, a warm blanket, and a gentle smile that spoke of patience rather than authority. At first, the child remained silent, nibbling on a piece of bread and occasionally glancing at the billionaire. It was clear that life on the street had taught them caution. Every human had been a potential threat or disappointment, so the instinct to guard themselves was strong. The billionaire did not feel hurt or frustrated. Instead, he felt a deep respect for the resilience the child had developed at such a young age. He knew that this survival instinct had kept them alive, and he would honor it. After a while, the child began to open up, sharing tiny details about life on the streets. They spoke of the cold nights when they had nowhere to sleep, of the kindness of strangers who occasionally gave food, and the times when fear forced them to hide or run. Their words were simple, yet the emotions behind them painted vivid pictures of a life filled with both struggle and quiet courage. The billionaire listened with his full attention, nodding occasionally, asking gentle questions to show he cared, and allowing the child to feel heard. The child also revealed how they had learned to survive by noticing small things. Others overlooked loose change on sidewalks, leftover food near cafes, or unattended bags in crowded markets. They had grown resourceful, intelligent, and cautious beyond their years. The billionaire admired their cleverness, realizing that the child's abilities had been honed not through privilege, but through necessity. He made a mental note to nurture these skills in a safer environment, where they could grow without fear. Hours passed, and the billionaire quietly observed as the child's tension slowly eased. He decided to introduce another layer of comfort by preparing a simple, nutritious meal. He invited the child to help him in the kitchen, explaining small steps in a calm, encouraging manner. The child was hesitant at first, unsure if they could trust this new situation, but eventually, curiosity won. Their small hands moved carefully, learning to wash vegetables, stir ingredients, and arrange the food with care. The act of preparing a meal together became an unspoken bridge, building trust in a way that words alone could not. After they ate, the billionaire suggested a short walk outside. The city had changed since the morning. The streets were now busier, and the sunlight created patterns of shadow and warmth along the pavement. The child held the billionaire's hand tightly, feeling the safety of his presence, yet glancing around at the bustling city with new eyes. Everything seemed different: the air, the sounds, even the faces passing by. He allowed the child to take in the world slowly, without pressure, pointing out small things that might bring joy: a bird hopping on the pavement, a flower blooming near a fence, the laughter of other children as they walked. The billionaire asked gentle questions, avoiding any hint of judgment or interrogation. He wanted the child to feel in control of what they shared. The child slowly revealed fragments of family life, or what they remembered of it. They spoke of a distant relative who sometimes looked after them, of neighbors who pretended not to see, and of the small joys they had clung to despite hardship. Their stories were fragmented, full of pauses and glances, but each word revealed a deep inner strength. The billionaire felt both sadness and admiration. Sadness for the suffering the child had endured, and admiration for the resilience and courage that shone through each word. When they returned home, the billionaire suggested they do something creative to express themselves. He brought out paper and pencils and encouraged the child to draw whatever came to mind. At first, the child hesitated, unsure of how to start, but eventually, a small sketch emerged, a rough outline of a house, a tree, and a sun shining brightly. The billionaire praised the effort gently, not the skill, and the child's face lit up with a small, genuine smile. It was a moment of discovery, a realization that creativity could exist even amidst fear and uncertainty. Later in the evening, the billionaire spoke to the child about safety and routine in a way that was simple and clear. He explained that from now on, the child would have a safe place to sleep, enough food, and people who cared about their well-being. He reassured the child that mistakes would not be punished and that asking for help was a strength, not a weakness. The child listened carefully, absorbing the words like a plant soaking up sunlight after a long winter. Trust was being built in small, deliberate steps. Over the next few days, the billionaire focused on creating a stable environment. He arranged for education, starting with basic reading and writing sessions, and made sure the child had access to hobbies and activities that nurtured curiosity. He introduced simple routines, mealtimes, quiet reading, and short walks, so that the child could feel the security of consistency. The child responded slowly but steadily, growing more comfortable with each passing day. Laughter began to appear in their voice, small gestures of confidence started to show, and a sense of normalcy, long absent from their life, began to emerge. The billionaire also made careful plans for emotional support. He recognized that material comfort alone could not erase the trauma the child had faced. He arranged for a compassionate mentor to spend time with the child, someone who could offer guidance, listen to worries, and teach social skills in a nurturing way. The child was hesitant at first, but over time, they began to connect. Discovering that adults could be kind without conditions, that patience could exist in the world, and that people could be reliable allies rather than threats. One afternoon, while sitting together in a small garden near their safe home, the child spoke with unexpected clarity about dreams. "I want to go to school," they said quietly. "I want to learn things I didn't know before. Want to see places, maybe even travel someday." The billionaire felt a wave of pride and joy. These dreams were simple, yet powerful, a testament to hope and potential that had survived the harshest conditions. He promised to support these dreams, to create opportunities, to be a consistent source of encouragement. As the days turned into weeks, the child's confidence grew. They learned not only to read and write, but also to navigate the world with curiosity rather than fear. The billionaire watched with amazement as the child's personality began to shine, revealing humor, intelligence, and compassion that had been hidden beneath layers of caution. The bond between them strengthened, built on trust, patience, and genuine care. Through all this, the billionaire also noticed subtle changes in himself. The encounter had opened a part of his heart he had long kept closed, teaching him the value of empathy, humility, and presence. He found joy not in business deals or profits, but in seeing the child laugh, learn, and explore. It was a lesson he would carry with him forever, that true success could not be measured solely by wealth or power, but by the lives one touched and the love one shared. By the end of part 2, both the billionaire and the child had begun a journey of transformation. The child had discovered a safe space, education, and the possibility of dreams beyond survival. The billionaire had rediscovered the profound impact of human connection and the responsibility to protect and nurture those who could not defend themselves. Together, they were not just creating a bond, they were building a new life, one filled with hope, learning, and the quiet promise of brighter days ahead. The days turned into weeks, and the billionaire noticed remarkable changes in the child. Every morning, the small figure would wake up with curiosity instead of fear, eager to explore new things and learn. The world outside no longer seemed as intimidating, and the child had begun to understand that not all people were threats. The billionaire made sure that every day held a mix of learning, fun, and quiet moments of reflection, building a rhythm that slowly replaced the unpredictability and fear of life on the streets. One morning, The billionaire decided it was time to introduce the child to the city in a different way, not through the lens of survival, through discovery. They walked together to a nearby park, filled with trees, flowers, and other children playing. The sounds of laughter and playful shouts were unfamiliar at first, but the child's eyes widened with wonder. They had never experienced this kind of carefree environment. Where joy was shared freely and safety was assumed, the billionaire stayed close, allowing the child to explore the park, try new games, and even interact with other children. At first, the child was hesitant, standing at the edge of groups, unsure if they could trust anyone. But gradually, curiosity overcame caution. They began to play simple games, smile at strangers, and even share a small toy they had brought from home. The billionaire observed silently, pride swelling in his chest. He realized that moments like these were as crucial as providing food or shelter. They were about giving the child a sense of normal life, of belonging, and of connection. Later that day, the billionaire took the child to a library. The building was quiet, filled with the scent of books and the soft rustle of pages turning. The child's eyes grew wide, absorbing the countless stories, colors, and possibilities. The billionaire guided them to a small table and suggested starting with picture books and simple stories. The child hesitated but soon became engrossed, pointing to images, asking questions, and reading aloud in a shaky but determined voice. Each word, each sentence read, strengthened their confidence and their belief that learning could be a source of joy, not just necessity. Back at home, the billionaire introduced more structured learning. He arranged for tutors who were patient, kind, and encouraging. Unlike previous schooling, this was not about pressure or grades, but about exploration and growth. The child was allowed to ask questions freely, make mistakes without fear, and discover the pleasure of understanding new concepts. Mathematics, science, and reading became adventures. And the billionaire would often sit nearby, listening, occasionally offering encouragement or helping with difficult concepts. Evenings were reserved for conversation and storytelling. The billionaire would recount stories from his own life, not the triumphs of business, but small personal experiences, lessons learned, and challenges overcome. The child listened intently, sometimes asking questions, sometimes laughing at the more humorous moments. These sessions built a deeper bond, one rooted in trust, shared experience, and understanding. The billionaire began to see the world anew through the child's eyes, noticing beauty, wonder, and curiosity that adult life had long overshadowed with responsibilities and concerns. One day, while walking through a local market, the child noticed other children selling small items, begging for coins or carrying burdens far beyond their age. The child's eyes filled with a mixture of recognition and sadness. They have no one like you," the child whispered softly. The billionaire looked at the other children, then back at the child, felt a pang of anger and sorrow at the unfairness of life. He realized that the child's experiences, while harsh, were shared by many others. It strengthened his resolve to provide more than just comfort. It became about creating opportunities, protecting innocence, and offering guidance that could ripple outward to touch others. The child began to express interests in specific subjects. Art became a favorite, a way to convey emotions and experiences that words sometimes failed to capture. They would spend hours sketching, painting, and exploring different materials. The billionaire encouraged these interests, providing supplies and arranging for art classes, where the child could learn techniques and express creativity in a safe environment. Each piece the child created told a story of resilience, hope, and the slow unraveling of fear. The billionaire admired each work, not just for skill, but for the courage and honesty it represented. Sports and physical activity also became part of daily life. The billionaire knew that play and exercise were vital, not just for health, but for confidence, social skills, and emotional release. The child learned to run, jump, and even play team games, slowly understanding the value of teamwork, trust, and communication. Through these experiences, the child discovered joy in movement and connection. Laughter ringing freely in ways that had been absent for too long. As the child grew more confident, The billionaire introduced them to basic responsibilities, small chores, caring for personal space, and simple acts of self-care became opportunities to instill discipline and independence. The child responded positively, feeling pride in contributing and managing aspects of life that had previously been chaotic. These tasks were framed not as obligations, but as steps toward autonomy, helping the child understand that they could shape their own life in safe, supportive ways. One afternoon, the billionaire and the child visited a small theater for a storytelling event. The lights, the sounds, and the vibrant performances captivated the child. Sitting in the audience, the child's eyes sparkled with wonder, and a soft gasp escaped them during particularly moving moments. Afterward, the billionaire encouraged the child to express what they felt about the performance. The child hesitated but eventually spoke, sharing thoughts and emotions that revealed depth, sensitivity, and growing self-awareness. These experiences nurtured empathy, imagination, and the understanding that emotions could be expressed safely and constructively. The billionaire also made careful efforts to introduce the child to the idea of giving back. Simple acts of kindness, like helping neighbors, sharing toys, or assisting in community projects, were gradually introduced. The child began to understand that while life had been unfair to them, compassion could still be shared. This understanding was transformative, nurturing both moral awareness and emotional healing. The child learned that despite past hardships, they could contribute positively to the world around them. During these months, the billionaire also reflected deeply on his own life. He realized that wealth and influence, while powerful, could not replace genuine human connection, empathy, and shared experiences. The child had taught him patience, humility, and the value of presence. Watching the child grow, explore, and gain confidence reminded him of what was truly important, not just building an empire, but using it to make meaningful, lasting change in the lives of others. The bond between the billionaire and the child deepened. They shared quiet moments of reflection, laughter over small jokes, and conversations about hopes, dreams, and fears. Trust had grown strong, built on respect, consistency, and care. The child no longer viewed the world solely through fear and survival instincts, but with curiosity, hope, and cautious optimism. They had begun to understand that safety and kindness could coexist with growth and learning, as Part 3 closes. The billionaire and the child had created a rhythm of life that was steady, nurturing, and empowering. The child had discovered new abilities, passions, and the possibility of dreams beyond survival. The billionaire had rediscovered the depth of empathy, the joy of witnessing growth, and the profound satisfaction of shaping a life positively. Together, they were not just surviving, they were thriving, building a future filled with potential, trust, and the quiet but unshakable hope that brighter days lay ahead. Weeks passed, and the child's world continued to expand in ways that had once seemed impossible. Every day brought new lessons, new experiences, and new opportunities to grow. The billionaire watched with a mixture of pride and amazement as the child's personality flourished, each day revealing more courage, curiosity, and joy. The child had begun to trust not only the billionaire, but also the wider world around them, slowly shedding the layers of fear that had once dominated their life. One morning, the billionaire suggested a trip to a small community center where children could gather for learning, games, and social activities. The child hesitated at first, worried about being around strangers. But the billionaire held their hand gently and reminded them that they would not be alone. When they arrived, the sounds of laughter, chatter, and playful noise filled the air. The child's eyes widened as they observed the other children playing, drawing, and sharing snacks. Slowly, a tentative smile appeared, and the child joined in, initially standing at the edge, but gradually interacting with peers. The billionaire observed quietly, only stepping in when needed. The child discovered the joy of teamwork through small games, learning to cooperate, communicate, and resolve conflicts. For the first time, they experienced the feeling of belonging to a group, sensation that had been foreign for most of their young life. They laughed freely, shared stories, and even taught others a few of the survival tricks they had learned on the streets. The billionaire noticed how confident the child had become, how their eyes no longer darted around in constant fear, but rested comfortably on the world with curiosity and interest. After the community center visit, the billionaire took the child to a nearby cafe for a treat. They ordered simple snacks and sat by the window, watching the world go by. The child observed people passing, noticing small details like how parents guided their children, how friends greeted each other, and how some individuals offered help to strangers. The billionaire used this moment to explain small lessons about kindness, empathy, and awareness. The child listened intently, asking questions and sharing observations that revealed an emerging understanding of human nature and relationships. Back at home, the billionaire encouraged the child to explore hobbies that could further nurture creativity and personal growth. They spent time with music, experimenting with sounds and rhythm, discovering a love for melodies that made their small face light up with concentration and joy. Art, music, and reading became intertwined parts of daily life, each fostering imagination and emotional expression. The billionaire provided resources, guidance, and encouragement, ensuring that each activity was a source of pleasure rather than obligation. Education continued to play a central role. The child was now learning beyond basic reading and writing, delving into subjects like history, science, and storytelling. The billionaire introduced simple experiments and hands-on projects to make learning tangible and exciting. The child's curiosity grew, questions multiplying like sparks in a fire, and the billionaire took the time to explore each one patiently, explaining concepts with clarity and care. Learning had transformed from a necessity into a source of joy and empowerment. One afternoon, while exploring the city together, the child encountered an older person struggling with groceries. Without hesitation, the child rushed forward to help, carrying a bag and offering a small hand. The billionaire watched, heart swelling with pride. The child's instinct to help others, once suppressed by fear and survival, now flourished into compassion and empathy. It was a sign that the lessons extended beyond books and routines. They were internalizing values that would guide them through life. The billionaire also began teaching the child about resilience and handling setbacks. They shared stories of personal challenges, times when plans failed or obstacles seemed insurmountable. The child listened with rapt attention, absorbing the idea that mistakes were part of growth, that failure could be transformed into learning. The billionaire encouraged the child to try new things, make choices, and accept outcomes with grace. Slowly, the child developed problem-solving skills and emotional strength that would carry them far into the future. The evenings were reserved for reflection and gentle conversation. The billionaire encouraged the child to express thoughts and feelings, teaching the importance of self-awareness and emotional honesty. They discussed dreams, fears, hopes, and values, reinforcing the understanding that life could be approached with courage, mindfulness, and empathy. The child began keeping a small journal, sketching, writing thoughts, or noting observations, allowing a private space for self-expression. The billionaire praised these efforts, emphasizing the value of reflecting on experiences. Over time, the child's interactions with the wider community expanded. They attended small workshops, participated in group activities, and began forming friendships with other children. The billionaire guided these connections carefully, ensuring safe environments and positive influences. The child began to experience the world beyond survival, learning to navigate social spaces, building confidence, and discovering the joy of shared experiences. Each smile, each new friend, each small success became a building block in the foundation of trust, independence, and emotional maturity. The billionaire also introduced lessons about gratitude and mindfulness. Simple exercises, like observing nature, reflecting on daily experiences, and acknowledging small joys, helped the child develop awareness and appreciation. These practices fostered calm, focus, and resilience, balancing the excitement of learning with inner peace. The child learned to savor moments, find beauty in small things, and approach challenges with patience and determination. During this time, the billionaire arranged for visits to cultural and historical sites in the city. Museums, exhibitions, and landmarks offered the child a broader perspective of the world. They marveled at ancient artifacts, scientific discoveries, and artistic achievements, asking endless questions that sparked deep discussions. The billionaire encouraged curiosity and exploration, emphasizing that knowledge was a lifelong journey, and that the world was full of wonders waiting to be discovered. The child also began to express interest in helping others like themselves. They asked questions about children who were still living on the streets, about ways to make a difference, and how they could contribute even at a young age. The billionaire guided these conversations carefully, nurturing empathy and social responsibility without overwhelming the child. Together, they brainstormed small, manageable acts of kindness, reinforcing the idea that compassion was a powerful force capable of creating change, no matter how small the gesture. As the bond between them deepened, the billionaire noticed profound changes in his own perspective. Life's complexities, challenges, pressures seemed smaller in comparison to the value of nurturing a life, of creating trust, and of fostering growth. The child had become a mirror, reflecting lessons of patience, empathy, and human connection that no business success could provide. He felt a sense of fulfillment and purpose that was different from any achievement he had experienced in his career. By now, the child's personality had become vibrant and multifaceted. They exhibited curiosity, kindness, resilience, and creativity, all nurtured through consistent care, guidance, and opportunities. The fear that had once dominated their small world had been replaced with cautious confidence and hope. They laughed more freely, asked questions without hesitation, and expressed emotions with clarity and honesty. The billionaire could see the seeds of a bright future, one that had been impossible to imagine weeks before. Part 4 concludes with a sense of transformation and deepening connection. The child had moved from survival and fear to curiosity, confidence, and empathy. They were beginning to explore the world, engage with learning, and form social bonds, guided by a nurturing, patient, and supportive presence. The billionaire, in turn, had discovered the true value of human connection, empathy, and the profound impact of shaping a life positively. Together, they were building a foundation for a future filled with promise, trust, and the quiet, unshakable hope that life could be kind and beautiful despite the hardships of the past. The weeks and months had passed quickly, and the child's life had transformed in ways that were once unimaginable. From the fear-filled mornings of begging on the streets to days filled with laughter, learning, and exploration, the journey had been nothing short of remarkable. The billionaire watched with a quiet pride, marveling at the resilience, courage, and curiosity that the child had developed. Every day revealed new strengths, and the bond between them had grown stronger, rooted in trust, empathy, and care. One morning, the billionaire suggested a trip to a nearby school for a visit, not for immediate enrollment, but to familiarize the child with the environment, teachers, and students. The child hesitated, a mix of excitement and nervousness flickering across their face. They had never experienced a school setting like this, where learning was encouraged, mistakes were accepted, and curiosity was celebrated. Holding the child's hand gently, the billionaire reassured them that they would not be alone, and that they could leave any time if it felt overwhelming. As they entered the school, the child's eyes widened with wonder. Bright classrooms, colorful posters, and the cheerful noise of children at play created a sense of possibility. The billionaire introduced the child to a friendly teacher, who welcomed them with warmth and patience. Slowly, the child began to explore the classroom, asking questions about books, drawings, and toys. The teacher allowed the child to participate at their own pace, creating small, positive experiences that fostered confidence and curiosity. The billionaire watched silently, allowing the child to take the lead, stepping in only to offer quiet support and encouragement. Over the next few weeks, the child gradually became more comfortable in the school setting. They learned to interact with peers, participate in group activities, and express ideas and feelings in a safe environment. Each small success, whether reading a sentence aloud, completing a puzzle, or sharing a drawing, reinforced confidence and a sense of accomplishment. The billionaire celebrated these milestones quietly, understanding that each step forward represented not just learning but healing and growth. Meanwhile, the child's curiosity about the wider world continued to expand. They asked questions about cities, countries, cultures, and people, revealing a desire to understand life beyond their immediate surroundings. The billionaire provided books, maps, and stories, fostering this sense of wonder. They discussed history, geography, and basic science, using examples from everyday life to make concepts relatable and exciting. The child's imagination flourished, building dreams and ambitions that had once seemed impossible. The billionaire also continued to nurture creativity and emotional expression. Art, music, and storytelling remained integral parts of daily life. The child painted vibrant scenes, played simple tunes on a keyboard, shared imaginative stories that reflected both their experiences and newfound optimism. These activities provided not only enjoyment, but also a safe space to process emotions, express ideas, and explore identity. The billionaire encouraged every effort, emphasizing that personal expression was valuable and meaningful. Regardless of skill or outcome during this time, the child began to form friendships outside the immediate safe environment. Carefully guided social interactions allowed the child to practice communication, empathy, and cooperation. Playdates, group activities, and small community projects provided opportunities for the child to navigate social dynamics, build trust with peers, and develop a sense of belonging. The billionaire observed these interactions closely, offering guidance and reassurance, but allowing the child to develop independence and confidence in their relationships. One afternoon, while visiting a local park, the child noticed a group of children struggling to carry bags of food for a community event. Without hesitation, the child offered help, lifting and carrying bags alongside the others. The billionaire watched with pride as the child's empathy and willingness to assist others became evident. These acts of kindness were not taught through instruction alone. They emerged naturally, nurtured by the consistent example of care, support, and respect the billionaire had provided. The child had begun to understand the power of compassion and the importance of helping others, even in small ways. The billionaire also continued to teach life skills, preparing the child for future independence. Simple tasks like managing time, organizing belongings, making decisions, and understanding basic finances were introduced gradually and in age-appropriate ways. The child embraced these lessons with growing confidence, recognizing that skills and knowledge provided freedom and the ability to shape one's own life. The billionaire guided without pressure, emphasizing learning through experience and reflection rather than perfection. Evenings were often reserved for quiet reflection, conversation, and planning. The billionaire encouraged the child to discuss dreams, goals, and fears, fostering emotional intelligence and self-awareness. Together, they created a vision for the future, what the child hoped to achieve, the places they wished to explore, and the ways they wanted to make a difference. These conversations built not only hope and motivation, but also a strong foundation of trust, mutual respect, and shared understanding. Over time, the child began to excel in learning and personal growth. Reading, writing, mathematics, and creative projects became sources of pride. They gained confidence in expressing thoughts, solving problems, and navigating social situations. Each success reinforced the lessons of resilience, curiosity, and empathy, shaping a young individual capable of facing challenges with strength and optimism. The billionaire observed these transformations with awe, realizing that the child had become a reflection of hope, courage, and potential. The child's relationship with the billionaire also evolved. No longer just a guardian or provider, the billionaire became a mentor, guide, and companion. They shared moments of laughter, discovery, and quiet reflection. The child began to trust fully, understanding that support was not conditional and that mistakes were opportunities for learning rather than judgment. The billionaire, in turn, learned patience, humility, and the profound satisfaction of witnessing growth and resilience firsthand. As the story approached its peak, the child achieved a milestone that symbolized the culmination of their journey, the first independent school project. They had created a presentation combining art, writing, and research about a topic that fascinated them. Standing in front of peers and teachers, the child spoke clearly, confidently, and with genuine enthusiasm. The room filled with applause, and the child's face shone with pride and joy. The billionaire, watching from the back, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This moment was not just about academic achievement. It represented courage, growth, and the ability to overcome a past filled with fear and uncertainty. The journey had also transformed the billionaire. Wealth, influence, and power had once defined success. But now true fulfillment was measured in the growth, happiness, and well-being of another human being. Witnessing the child's transformation had reshaped priorities, values, and perspective. The billionaire understood that the most meaningful impact was not in material wealth, but in nurturing life, fostering trust, and creating opportunities for others to thrive. In the weeks following, the child continued to flourish, exploring new interests, building friendships, and dreaming bigger. The billionaire provided guidance, encouragement, and resources, always mindful of fostering independence, resilience, and empathy. The child's past, once filled with hardship and fear, became a source of strength and wisdom. Informing choices and shaping a compassionate outlook on life, the story concluded with a quiet, profound moment of reflection. Sitting together in the garden of their home, the billionaire and the child watched the sunset, a warm glow bathing the world in soft light. The child leaned against the billionaire, a gesture of trust and comfort that symbolized the journey they had taken together. Words were unnecessary. The bond, growth, and hope were evident in every gesture, glance, and shared silence. The day had begun with a child alone on the streets, vulnerable and unseen. Now, that same child was confident, curious, and cared for, supported by a bond built on trust, empathy, and shared experience. The billionaire had discovered the profound power of compassion, mentorship, and human connection. Together, they had rewritten a story that once seemed defined by hardship, creating a life filled with opportunity, joy, and hope. The transformation was complete, not just in circumstances, but in hearts and minds. The child's journey was a testament to resilience, courage, and the impact of genuine care. The billionaire's life was forever changed, enriched by the lessons of patience, empathy, and the irreplaceable value of nurturing another human being. Their story was one of hope, growth, and the quiet, enduring power of kindness, a reminder that even the smallest acts of care can change lives forever.